Hello and welcome to Just In My Opinion. Today I'm looking at Black Future 88, a kind of cyberpunk roguelike action game. I caught wind of this game a few weeks ago, thought it looked incredible visually, and I'll admit, I dropped the ball and missed the release date. Probably one of my biggest regrets with this channel, because this wound up being one of the best roguelike games I've played in a very long time. I'm just going to start off with the visuals, because I think this is one of the strongest points of the game. Everything about this game is beautiful. There's so much eye candy, so many effects, so much going on with every single screen, and it just completely immerses you in every single run you make. I also don't usually talk about music or sound effects, but in this case, I genuinely noticed the sound, the music, and it all complemented the game so incredibly well. There's not really anything to critique or dive into here though. I just thought the game looked and felt amazing. That's it. Now, let's talk about the goals. What are you actually trying to do? How does the game work? Well, you start a run by choosing a character. You start off with a single choice, and this expands as you play through the game more, or by finding specific events in your runs. All of the characters generally play the same, but have different perks at the start of the run, and slightly different pros and cons. I feel like I can mostly play through the game as any character and achieve the same degree of success, but at the same time, when I switch characters, I can also immediately see the differences in how runs initially play. So, I kind of skipped the story cutscenes and can't tell you what the actual goal of the game is, but from a gameplay perspective, you have 18 minutes to make it to the end of a run. After 18 minutes, you die. Once you make it to the end and defeat the final boss, you can use any extra time you've built up to get started on a second loop of the game that seems to give you access to more powerful items at the onset. The game was difficult enough that I had trouble getting through my second loop, and I can't expand on what happens beyond that. If anyone watching has played past this point and feels like something changes significantly, throw in a comment. Along the way, you'll find a variety of weapons, upgrades, and all sorts of other things like stims. These all work to provide different perks or stat boosts that will help and potentially hinder you on your climb. For example, you can pick up cursed items that are objectively stronger items than non-cursed items. However, doing so will increase the chance you find cursed enemies on your journey, and cursed enemies tend to be a lot more difficult to deal with than non-cursed enemies. So that's a trade-off. There are trade-offs associated with other types of pickups as well. Sometimes you'll lose time for picking up upgrades, life, etc. There are also certain combinations of weapons and perks that pair well together, and you'll unlock combos in your codex when you find pairings like this. These pairings very clearly make the game easier, and once you discover some of these tricks, your runs can start to focus on assembling these combos and giving yourself a distinct advantage. Beyond that, the game is super fast paced. You can get into some absolutely ridiculous combat, and there's even more that I haven't mentioned. Like learning how to dash effectively, that just makes everything even more fluid as you get better at it. It's one of the smoothest games I think I've ever played from a combat perspective, given how much can be going on. With all that said, not everything's perfect, but it's pretty close. So one feature of roguelike games is variance. Different playthroughs often feel very different. With Black Future, I feel like there wasn't a whole lot of variance. There are so many mechanisms to build your character on a run that you often wind up with a very similar build across playthroughs, while most of the variance comes down to how the rooms are generated, what weapons you get, and finally what order you fight bosses in. For me, the game was so intense that this didn't detract from my enjoyment, and it's brand new. One other game I like to reference a lot is Enter the Gungeon, which is one of my favorite roguelikes and has a similarly hectic feel. There's a huge amount of variance there. However, it was added over the life of the game through lots and lots of updates, so I'm going to hold my breath and say this comment may even invalidate itself in the future. Finally, there were a couple of noticeable bugs. I could consistently get myself locked under the floor in certain areas and the game occasionally crashed. However, The crashes didn't really bother me. I think I crashed 2 or 3 times, but it would always crash when I was choosing to restart a run or start a new run, so it didn't actually impact my playthroughs. It was more of a nuisance after dying where I'd have to reopen the game. That's it. I love roguelikes in general. It's one of my favorite genres, and I can absolutely say that this is one of the best roguelikes I've played in a very, very long time. Maybe actually the most enjoyable roguelike I've ever played. I'm not saying it's better than games like Enter the Gungeon or Binding of Isaac, but I am saying that I personally enjoyed it a lot more, and that could just be because of the visuals. I'm not sure. Either ways, I highly suggest checking this game out if it even looks remotely appealing to you. And don't forget, this is just in my opinion. If you feel like I left something out, disagree, or want to suggest something else for me to look at, leave a comment. I've been streaming a lot of my playthroughs live on Twitch before my reviews as well, so think about checking me out over there too. I'm also running a giveaway to help support my Twitch channel, so if you want to win a Steam gift card, check out the video's description. Thanks for watching, and if you found this video helpful, consider subscribing. It helps make my channel more visible, and even if you don't care about other games I look at, one of my videos could help someone else out too. Either ways, I'll be back next week with more reviews.